Ladies and gentlemen, IMUS in the morning.
Please welcome to the IMUS Morning Program one of my favorite people on the planet from the great state of Arizona, where I spent a lot of time, Senator John McCain. Good morning, Senator McCain.
Good morning, sir. Right. Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be back. And can I say on the Marine Corps birthday, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Because many of our viewers may not know that you once served honorably in the United States Marine Corps, and thank you for that.
You're quite welcome.
And I understand that you were a bugler.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute. My story is I was in the jungles of Vietnam killing the Kong.
I see. I thought.
And your story is I was in the 11th Marine Drum and Bugle Corps at Camp Pendleton? Okay, well.
The truth lies somewhere in between that, my dear friend.
Senator, don't you think...
Happy birthday to the Marines.
Thank you. Senator, don't you think after all this time, it's time you paid back this country for that perfectly good jet you lost?
Several of them, actually. I was thinking about that. But, you know, in those days, planes were a lot cheaper and pilots were more expendable. So,
other than the one you got shot down in, did you?
Well, I crashed a couple others.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. One in pilot training, I crashed, and one I ejected from over the Chesapeake Bay, and several. I mean, just, you know, those things happen. You know, when you're not a very good pilot, those things happen. And you know, the final one where I intercepted a surface-to-air missile with my airplane, that was no mean feat. That was McNamara's way of winning the war. Yeah. Most of our viewers don't even know who McNamara was, but
used to call it McNamara's War.
There you go. We're about to do the same. We're doing the same thing over again, by the way, in Iraq and Syria. This gradual increase, gradualism. Now 1,500 more. A month or two from now, we'll see 1,500 more. We'll see this gradualism.
We're talking about ground troops.
Yeah, the same. It'll be the same as Vietnam, and the ending, unfortunately, if we keep this up, will be the same.
And what do you think should happen?
I think we should do what's necessary, and that is to have some more boots on the ground, not the 82nd Airborne, but get some forward air controllers in there, some special forces, some trainers. And look, I know that sounds terrible, and oh my God, we should do that. It does. But do you know what's happening now? We're losing. We now have established the largest terrorist enclave in history, the size of the state of Indiana, and they are dedicated to our extinction. This guy Baghdadi that I hope we wounded yesterday, according to some reports, when he left our prison in Iraq called Camp Bucca, where he was interned for 4 years, the day he left, he said, "I'll see you in New York. I'll see you in New York." He wasn't kidding. He wasn't known for a sense of humor.
Isn't this all because we should have stayed out of Iraq in the first place?
Well, I think you could make that argument, especially since apparently the presentation that the Secretary of State, Colin Powell, made to the United Nations, the American people, that they had weapons of mass destruction, and they didn't. But once we were there and we were losing, and people like Lindsey Graham and I said that Rumsfeld has to resign and we have to have a surge, we had it stabilized. And if we'd have left a force behind, then we would have had that. We wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing today. We had it stabilized thanks to the sacrifice of a lot of brave Americans, including a lot of young Marines at places like Fallujah, where the black flag of ISIS now flies overward. It's a debacle. And that's not to mention Ukraine, where the Russians are now dismembering that country, not to mention Asia, where the Chinese are acting more and more in aggressive fashion. I'm telling you, this is the worst turmoil I have seen the world in my lifetime. And that, as you know, goes all the way back to the Coolidge administration when I was first elected to the Senate.
Lindsey Graham, that's a kind of an odd fellow, isn't he?
Oh, he's a wonderful guy. He's a wonderful, I love him like a son or a brother, and he's one of the most entertaining guys. I hope you have him on sometime. He's very quick-witted.
I'm not going to have him on.
All right, then don't.
Because I think he's a female impersonator. Not that that's bad. Anyway, your book, 13 Soldiers, is a marvelous idea. It's a personal history of Americans at war. You pick 13 remarkable people. You and Mark Sola. Haven't I met Mark Sola?
Yes, you have, and he's out here. And Mark really is the genius behind it.
He's a pretty nice guy.
He's a wonderful, dear friend. He was my administrative assistant for many years.
Oh, that's right. That's right, man.
And we worked very closely together for years. And we haven't done anything in quite a while, and we thought it might be a nice thing to not only...
Well, Mark was in rehab for a while, right? No, pretty. Not just a-
Mark was not.
Okay,
was
well,
not
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Rehab.
Dispel that rumor.
I think he were, after having left my staff, I think he was in a state of enjoyment, euphoria.
Well, tell me about these 13 soldiers.
Well, it's various soldiers, a couple of African Americans, a couple of women that served, but mostly the common theme is they were ordinary people who did great things, and a lot of them were very imperfect people. It's not as if they were picked these heroes who were absolutely perfect, and some of them had flawed lives both before and after. Others were Brahmins, such as Oliver Wendell Holmes, but others were ordinary people like Joseph Martin, who joined the Continental Army at age 15 and was hungry all the time and cold, and yet what they were able to do was really marvelous. Charles Black was African American who fought in the War of 1812.
Wow!
But next time you come to the Capitol, I'll show you a painting. My favorite painting, Battle of Lake Erie, which is the War of 1812, and Commodore Perry is being rowed from his flagship, which was sunk, to another ship. One of the people rowing is an African American. About 30% of our ships were African Americans, where people were treated equally because every person's job was vital to the survival of the others. And he did magnificent heroism, and then years later he was badly beaten in a race riot in Philadelphia. So we try to tell those kinds of stories in the context of the conflicts in which they fought. And you know, for example, there was a great woman in the Gulf War, Monica Lynn Brown in Afghanistan, a medic, went in to where an IED blew up, saved these people's lives. An argument for, by the way, women in combat.
Sure.
I mean, she did a magnificent job. So we're proud. I'm proud to have written this book, and I hope it honors not only those who are the genuine, larger-than-life heroes, but the ordinary people who did extraordinary things.
Why can't we? That's a great idea for a book, and particularly appropriate now. Why can't we, a final question here, why can't we get the Veterans Administration straight now? Why can't we, for example, rather than have these veterans wait 180 days to get vouchers for them to go to like Hackensack Hospital or New York Hospital or someplace, anywhere they want?
In the negotiations that I had with Senator Sanders, and we passed a bill 93-3 through the Senate, and later a bill through, it was a step in the right direction. Anybody who lives more than 40 miles from a VA facility can get this choice card that Bo was. That was quite a performance.
No, but he's right.
He's not only right, he's passionate, and I thank him. God bless him for his passion. And also, if there's an inordinate waiting time. I campaigned in 2008 for that choice card.
Well, what happened?
They still need.
Choice card?
We had to compromise, and frankly, some of the veteran service organizations, like the VFW and the American Legion, didn't want it. So we get this compromise. But Bo was right. Every veteran should have a card and go wherever they want to. And by the way, it's a long way from fixed. We passed legislation, but let me just give you an example where this whole scandal started. 50 of veterans died in Phoenix, Arizona, because they didn't get the care that while they were on a, quote, waiting list that was secret, okay? And so that's where it started. And it's a long, long way from fixed. There are systemic problems, and so by the legislation that we passed is only a beginning. But now we've got a guy named Johnny Isaacson from Georgia that's going to be the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee.
It sounds
and he will do a good job. Yeah. We need to oversight. The three people who were in charge in the Phoenix VA, they still are on administrative leave and getting full pay and benefits. Help me out. How does that work?
Well, you see what I mean? I don't know. I can't.
It's disgraceful.
If I could answer questions, I'd be the
No, but it's disgraceful.
Well, thank you for your service, your remarkable service to this country in the armed forces, and mostly in the Senate, except when you vote for crazy stuff.
Can I thank you for your continued friendship and entertainment and enjoyment? And again, happy birthday, the Marine Corps.
Thank you. Senator John McCAIN here in the Irish Morning Program.